Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me tonight is Sheri Mitschelen. She is the Executive Director and President of the Heartleaf Center, located in Fairfax City, and providing mental health counseling to children aged 3 to 18. Thank you so much for joining me, Sheri.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a licensed clinical social worker, and you've been in private practice for decades in the city. And now you have opened this center to serve, and it's a nonprofit, to serve the needs of children in our community who might not otherwise have access to things like play therapy. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you had this idea to create this nonprofit center.
So I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a registered play therapist, and I have another practice called Crossroads Family Counseling Center that I've had for over 20 years, but I was really seeing a need for families that were coming to us that couldn't afford it, because most of the area private practices are all cash-based, and then we have them go back and get reimbursement from their insurance. And there's not a lot of practices in this area that take insurance, and so we saw a need where families were coming, they couldn't afford to pay out of pocket, and they couldn't find a provider that worked with their insurance. And so we thought, you know, we need to find a way to help serve these families. And also really finding that a lot of the minority families and cultural families were often coming into counseling when they were more in crisis. And so we wanted to help them get into therapy earlier because the finances are just kind of destigmatizing mental health, to help them get providers that they could work with. And so we started the Heartleaf Center in 2021, and I teamed up with Lisa Lamb, who comes from a background of working with at Fort Belvoir military, and she's also worked within schools, and so we teamed up to start the Heartleaf Center, and so we've been served already 270 families in less than 2 years.
That's absolutely amazing. Describe a little bit about how play therapy is different from other kinds of counseling. Since you're serving children from 3 to 18, there's some children, very young children on that spectrum, obviously you don't have a lot of vocabulary to express their feelings and thoughts.
Right. So yeah, so play therapy is different because we, can't expect a child to come sit on the couch and tell you, I'm really upset about this, this, and this, versus an adult can, and because they're developmentally and cognitively able to. And some of our teens do, and some of the older kids, 10 to 18, they can come in and talk about things. But we have a room full of toys that are being pre-selected. So we have doll houses, a kitchen, which is more nurturing themed toys. We have some aggressive toys, which are like handcuffs, a bop bag, swords, mastery toys, which are Legos and building blocks. And so we have them come in, we tell them that they can play with whatever they like in the room, and we give them this permissive environment. And that sounds crazy, as an adult, we were like, why would you let them do that? But what we find is that the kids then gravitate to whatever's on their mind, and they go out and they play it out. And the toys are like their language, it's their way of communicating to us what's on their mind. And then they walk out of the room like they just shared their story. And just like an adult walks out of the room after talking to a good friend, they feel better. The kids walk out and they feel better.
You bring forward something that's so important, which is the need to let your feelings out in a safe environment and to have somebody understand. To me, talking about the cultural aspects of helping people to understand that mental health is health. Mental health care is health care. It's not any different than if you had a broken arm or you needed a vaccine or anything like that. It's health care, and yet it's so difficult even for people who can understand the larger perspective. But if you come from a culture where that is not an accepted form of health care, I can see that you would have a difficulty helping families to understand why this makes such a difference for their kids.
Yeah, a lot of times it's really, we're educating the parents that it doesn't mean that their child has a serious, mental health issue or that they're going to have lifelong problems, but we're giving them the tools and the skills that they need now. We really believe in early intervention. If we can give a child in, elementary school and earlier, those skills so they get to where they're a teenager and they don't have serious struggling with mental health issues. And so helping them to understand that it doesn't mean that there's something seriously wrong. It's just like you're strengthening muscles and you're strengthening the mental health muscles to help them get the skills they need.
Well, it's sort of like in healthcare, we have tried to move from sick care to wellness.
Right.
This idea that you don't just go to the doctor when you're sick or something's wrong. you do wellness, so your weight and your cholesterol and knowing what your sugar levels are so that you can focus on staying healthy and staying well.
Right.
And to me, we have not made that leap into healthcare, or normalizing therapy or working with a therapist is a way you stay healthy. And that's for all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of people are starting to come around to thinking that they would rather get their kids some extra support and help instead of waiting, and that's what we really believe in, is that early intervention and helping, as soon as possible. Don't wait until it gets to be more of a crisis level, and then it's a lot harder on our end to help untangle things because we can't just fix the problem right away. And we really believe in taking an approach too that involves the family and the parents, and so we include them in our therapy too, because a lot of parents would like to come and just drop their child off with us, but we help the parents to see maybe some things that they can do a little bit different, or things that they can do to help their child or strengthen the whole relationship in the family. And then we also work with schools as well and help with the teachers in the classroom, maybe some things that would help the child to be more successful in the school.
So you were doing work with 2 Title I schools in Fairfax County public school system. How in the world did you set that up? It's a huge school system, and I have also worked with FCPS and understand that it's kind of a hurdle to try to get something new inside such a large school system.
Well, I think because Lisa Lamb had that connection of being embedded in a school system already, she had those connections, and so she was able to get some agreement with that we could start, and so we piloted it this school year, and we've been working with the 2 schools with a lot of success. We've worked with 17 families. There's been more referrals than that, but some of the families have not been open to therapy, or it just hasn't worked out, but we've worked with 17 families. We're hoping to increase that to a 3rd school next year. And we're finding a lot of success. The parents are, reporting. We have surveys that we give them and scales and ratings, and they're reporting a huge increase in seeing behaviors. The teachers are seeing an increase and seeing, improvements in the kids being able to be more successful in the classroom. And so that was one way that we could eliminate this barrier of kids getting treatment, was by going to them, because that's where they are, 7 hours a day. And so we're finding it to be a really successful way of helping them get what they need.
So in helping the child and working with the family and being in a school setting too, working as part of a team with a teacher, is this also kind of helping teachers acquire new skills?
That's our goal. And yes, we want to help them to find ways to, maybe identify when a kid's starting to get dysregulated, or, it's like getting ready to just start, being disruptive in the classroom, or teaching them some skills, because none of these teachers have been taught mental health skills and how to de-escalate things. And so, so our counselors are trying to help the teachers learn some new skills, to maybe a different way of approaching or talking to the child. And we don't want to overstep our bounds, and they are the teacher, and we want to support them, but helping them, give them some skills that we can help them as well.
It reminds me, because I've had people on the show before talking about restorative justice and introducing the idea of restorative justice with very young children, and the fact that students need to know how to accept responsibility, but they also need to be forgiven. And this comes from these primal circles in indigenous cultures. Back when you couldn't just put somebody in jail or prison, you had to live in a community where, when harm was done, restoration and reparations need to be made, and people needed to be made whole, both the perpetrator and the victim.
Right.
And so, thinking in terms of restorative justice and the skills that you give young children in a school setting where this is how conflict is resolved, this seems to me part and parcel of what you are also doing in helping people to see situations we're familiar with from a different perspective, and bringing a different solution or a different set of tools to figure out how to deal with what's happening.
Right, right. Yeah, we want to be able to help them to find the skills that they need to be able to be successful in that classroom, and help the teachers, because 1 in 5 children have been identified as having serious mental health issues. Can you imagine 5 children in a classroom of 25 students have serious issues? And we know that that's 5 that have probably been identified. There's probably about 5 more that are struggling. And so these teachers are really struggling to help manage a classroom by themselves and help these kids to learn the skills that they need.
And so when you get referrals, you had mentioned that you work with military families and you're getting referrals from different resources. and you've worked with an enormous number of families already this year. You know, what are some of the ways, if we've got viewers who are like, this sounds like something, a fantastic resource, how in fact do referrals get made from a practical?
So most people email us. Our email is info@heartleafcenter.org. And then we start a process. We have a sliding scale fee, so we collect information to find out what their financial information is, how many people live in the home, and so we base that scale on that, the income and family's household size. And then we connect them with a counselor. One of the things we're struggling with right now is we have a wait list of 30 people, and we are just trying to have enough therapists that we can see the need. And so one of the parts of our mission is training mental health therapists to be able to work with children, because there's a lot of therapists in this area that do counseling, but not a lot do work with children, and they don't provide play therapy to this level. There's not a lot of nonprofits that provide play therapy. So we're training these counselors, and so we're really trying to increase the mental health workforce, but also being able to provide more services at the Heartleaf Center to be able to serve all these families that we're getting referrals for.
And you do have, I looked at your website, you do have quite a number of interns, and I know you work with different schools, Mason and VCU, trying to get, I guess, people interested in this specific kind of therapy, working with this very young population of children.
Right. Yeah, we work with George Washington University, VCU, George Mason's counseling and social work departments, and a lot of the interns that are coming to work with us, like, they have a passion for children, and then we're teaching them about play therapy, and so we do an intensive training, 12 hours of play therapy training to give them the tools so that they're actually able to do it and do it well, because that's part of our mission is providing quality mental health play therapy treatment. And so we're giving them the tools. We provide monthly trainings as well. And so so when they're leaving us, they're going off into the community to provide really good counseling to children, or we're hoping they're staying with us. We have 3 interns that are going to be staying with us this year, and so we're excited to have them join our team.
That's amazing, because I think, again, there's so much need and there's not enough providers. And when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about that. Please stay tuned. You're watching Your Need to Know, and we are talking with Sheri Mitschelen of the Heartleaf Center in Fairfax City. Join us after the break.
Caitlin, be serious. No, take the oath. Come on. I'm totally taking this seriously. Okay, I'm ready. You may begin. I pledge that I will never meet in person with anyone I first met online without checking with my parent or guardian. And furthermore, if my parent or guardian agrees to the meeting, it will be in a public place and my parent or guardian must come along. Do you pinky swear? I do.
When you teach your kids about internet safety, they'll pass it on. For more information, go to cableclicksmart.org.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're talking with Sheri Mitschelen, who is the Executive Director and President of Heartleaf Center in Fairfax City. The center provides counseling to very young children from ages 3 to 18, and it's a nonprofit. So you are really doing outreach to families in our community who might not have the resources or the access to mental health care services for their very young children. So I appreciate you illuminating a subject which a lot of people don't talk about. And as you pointed out earlier in the show, it's because there's a lot of stigma around mental health in general, and the fact that, you know, if some child would benefit from counseling, what that means to the family, and how the family then has to decide how their child is being represented in their community. And we talked about cultural diversity. We have a very diverse community in Northern Virginia. I mean, 200 languages are spoken in this region. And so people are coming from cultures where maybe this is not normalized health care.
Right.
So, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, how the Heartleaf Center is reaching into populations of people and trying to normalize this kind of health care.
So we've really made an intentional effort to try to hire initially staff and therapists that represent different cultures to help people feel a little bit more comfortable coming in and working with somebody that maybe looks a little bit similar to them or speaks a language that they do, because that's obviously really important just to get into services. The language barriers have been huge for a lot of families in this area. And so we've also reached out to different organizations to let them know about us. And we haven't quite gotten into all of them because, you know, we find that some communities, they go to their church for counseling first,
Right.
you know, or they go to, you know, the elders in their community. And so we've been working with some of those communities to let them know that we are available. And we've been learning from them and finding that, you know, sometimes saying the word counseling is not a good thing to say. Maybe we say something like, you know, help you manage your stress. And so finding different ways of being able to reach out to them and help them, you know, access mental health counseling services in a way that's more relatable to them, or, you know, it's more approachable for them.
You know, and you bring up something important, which is words matter. The words we use matter. And because, you know, mental health problems have been associated with terrible outcomes, for instance, gun violence.
Right.
We talk a lot about gun violence is attached to terrible mental health problems. And so people are naturally associating mental health with something very negative. So maybe we really do need to develop a different vocabulary for how we talk about the different aspects of mental wellness.
Right, yeah. And so, yeah, we really believe in early intervention. And so we really want these kids to come in to get mental health services early so that we can give them the tools and the skills they need so that it doesn't get to be a teenager where they're really struggling. And, you know, we can help prevent, you know, longer term problems like a hospitalization or residential treatment or lifelong mental health issues. And so we know that if we can get in and get early intervention, give them the skills and tools they need, they'll be much more successful, you know, in the community, with family, friends, a workforce. And so, you know, yes, it's not that it's mental health issues. We're really helping to strengthen all these mental health resources for them.
Absolutely, and I do think that we need to start having different conversations about that, because the stresses that young children are feeling, and they're probably not new, but maybe we just talk about them differently, but, you know, eating disorders, you know, and some of the things that come from anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and the things that really become stumbling blocks for otherwise healthy children who just struggle with trying to manage these things in their lives. And I think it's evident in the school setting and in the school situation.
Right. I think, you know, a lot of people, especially, you know, there's been a lot of anxiety in our world for the last couple of years, and these kids have absorbed it, and they've been told it's not safe to go out of your house, it's not safe to interact with people, and so they're building that into their framework and their thought patterns of how, you know, I relate to the world and how I relate to others. And so then it does start to create this anxiety. And then if they have a genetic history, a family history of anxiety, then that just compounds on it. And so, you know, kids get to where they're living with anxiety and they don't realize how it's impacting their lives. And so then, you know, they start maybe getting in trouble in school, or they're obsessing over something, or, you know, just getting fearful of going to school or going to bed at night. And so then parents are struggling because nobody's sleeping. And so then they come in and we were like, oh, that's anxiety. And the kids are like, oh, that's what that feeling is. I didn't know that's what that was, you know? And so they'll play it out in the playroom. And we can see, you know, I had a little boy who was going to have a surgery. He didn't know he was having surgery, but kids are really smart. He came in the playroom. I said, you can play whatever you want. And he went straight to an ambulance in a hospital and played this out. Meanwhile, he didn't know he's having it. And so kids are so smart. They come in and they play out what's going on in their mind. They play out their anxieties, worries. We just had during last fall, a little 4-year-old came in and played out war when the Ukraine war broke out. His parents are military. And so, you know, you think, oh, well, kids play out war scenes. But he's playing out a war scene where his mom and dad might be going off to get killed. And he's worried about that, rightfully so. And so we're helping them to be able to express these in ways that they can't talk, but they can play and communicate it through their play.
Gosh, you are so right that kids are so much smarter than we give them credit for, because we rely so much on verbal ability to tell us whether or not someone is smart or not.
Right.
In play therapy, I can see where they can demonstrate in all manner of ways exactly what they know.
Yeah. And so, yeah, they're not verbally talking, but they're communicating that through the play. And then as our job as therapists is we're giving them this room to show us what's on their mind. And, you know, and during time, we will see repeated themes, or, you know, we'll see something like shift, and then we know, like, oh, okay, something's going on. And then it's our job as, you know, therapists to be able to translate that back to the parents, what we're seeing. And, you know, I had a little girl who was having trouble transitioning, and so I said, do we need to talk to her teacher, because she's getting in trouble at school because she can't just pick up from where her toys are and leave and go to the next activity. I'm like, so we need to talk to the teacher and let her know. She's got to give her more warning. And so we're helping, you know, teachers, parents, and letting them know what's going on. And so we really involve the parents in the play and involve them in what's going on so we can help them to better understand their child too.
That's great. It sounds like something all parents actually need, because kids don't come with instructions, and so most of us just try to figure it out.
Right.
And I'm sure I probably didn't do as well as other parents did, but anyway, mine survived to adulthood, and I'm like, yes, go me.
And we all do our best.
We all do our best, and people have to remember that too. It's okay to ask for help, because everybody's struggling.
Yes.
And I do think in a lot of ways parents feel judged, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think social media has just been so terrible in a lot of ways about how people perceive their life in comparison to other people's lives.
Exactly.
And they're always judging themselves, and it creates, I just think there's a lot of anxiety over what this sort of fictionalized version of our lives that plays out on social media and how it impacts other people.
I think so too. And I think that, you know, kids are just exposed to way more things than they need to be, and they don't understand it cognitively, emotionally, socially. And then they're trying to be something that maybe they're not, or they're trying to compete with others, and they don't even know how it's impacting them emotionally. And so it does create a lot of anxiety, and then they start acting it out through their behavior because they can't verbalize, like, you know, I'm really stressed, or I'm really worried about something, so it comes out in behavior with children. And then that's how we can kind of see that maybe they're really struggling with something going on.
So we talked about the fact that we don't have nearly enough service providers for this overwhelming need. And I think after COVID, post-COVID, we really realized that kids have been through an unprecedented global event,
Right.
the likes of which we have never seen before. And so I'm sure it's going to unfold as the years go on, as we see at what age children were during the lockdown, and we're going to start to see it unfold. But getting people to consider a career in being a licensed clinical social worker, a counselor, a psychiatrist, it's an expensive journey to get the education and the licensing, and it makes me concerned that we don't have enough people in our pipeline. And to your point about diversity, people from different cultures in our pipeline to provide the sort of services we need right now and we are going to need in the future. What can we do? I mean, how do we address that part of the problem?
So as I said, part of our mission is training quality people to be able to provide this. And so we've had students from the area universities come. Some of them, it's a second career for them. Like one, we have a teacher who's decided he wants to make more of an impact and has become a counselor. And we've had, I have a mother that's gone back to school who wanted to do something. We have people all different our program manager, she used to be in the military, she used to be a police officer, and now she's a therapist. So people are, you really have to have a heart and a passion for working with kids and wanting to make a difference. And it is a really hard career, but it's also such a rewarding career that it gives you a sense of joy that you're helping others and being able to give back to the community as well. And so that's what we were hoping to do, because we really want to train them well, and because we're making a difference in children's lives, and it's going to impact them forever. And that's what we want to do.
And from a public policy standpoint, do we have the resources? Are we making a career in this field attractive enough and attainable enough for people to seriously consider going to the expense and the years of education and all of the licensing requirements to do the work?
I think so. I think, there's been some initiatives. The governor this year has put some things in place to help increase the mental health workforce. And so there's some stipends to help counselors who to get licensed. And so it's, once you get through graduate school, you have to then have a 2-year residency or supervision to take your license. And then, so he's helping to provide a stipend for people to be able to pay for that. And so there's different resources that I think that the Commonwealth of Virginia is putting into place, which is really exciting, because it is an expensive road. And I think a lot of people are prohibited because of the expenses that it does incur. But I think, if it's something that you're really passionate and you really want to do, I believe that, you'll get rewards in other ways too.
I agree with you. And speaking of getting the word out about programs like that, I love the idea of a stipend. You've got a golf tournament coming up on June 5th at the National Golf and Country Club in Chantilly,
Correct.
I believe. In fact, that's how we met, is because you were like, hey, do you play golf? And I'm like, hey, no, but I host a show. But your golf tournament is coming up, and you are a nonprofit, and there are ways in which people can support your work.
Yes. So yeah, this is our first annual golf tournament. We're very excited about it, and we're going to have a hole-in-one contest. We're going to have a putting contest. There's going to be all different things. We're play therapists, so we like to have fun.
Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Play therapists, come play golf.
That's right.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming. I have learned a lot today, and I hope our viewers have also learned a lot today, too. And if people want to find out more information about Heartleaf, you can find that information at heartleafcenter.org. There's information about the upcoming golf tournament and about the services they provide. And take a look, too. They have an enormous number of counselors and interns and a wonderful board. And this is what it takes when you start an enterprise like this, a nonprofit therapy center that serves the community. So this is what you need to know.